Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be trying out one of the most difficult possible challenges in all of Go Battle League, the Acid Spray Only Challenge. Today, I'll be playing in the Spring Cup, but the only charge move I am allowed to use is Acid Spray. Now this proves to be quite difficult, as that means I can basically do 0 charge move damage, and on top of that, I am restricted to only using Pokemon that have Acid Spray. For the team, I'm running Shadow Victory Bell, Water Gun Qwilfish, and Tentacruel. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out the Acid Spray Only Challenge in the Spring Cup. Hopping the first match, picking up an absolute nightmare lead, Shadow Victory Bell into Ferrothorn. Now you may have noticed my team is triple weak to Ferrothorn because unfortunately there are no Acid Spray users in the Spring Cup that can defeat Ferrothorn. So I'm in an extremely tough spot here. My best bet is to stay in with the Shadow Victory Bell, fire off the Acid Spray to lower their defense, and then attempt to double resisted Razor Leaf through the Grass and Steel type Pokemon. They go for another Flash Cannon, I commit the shield, I'm looking for the farm down, but at the last second, I do get nervous and I fire off one more Acid Spray just to guarantee the KO. This way, I keep Victory Bell alive. In comes Mawile, I pivot into Qwilfish, and Qwilfish will be answered with Seaking. Now, Qwilfish does typically run Poison Sting, but I'm actually running Water Gun on Qwilfish because Poison Sting does not do a lot of fast move damage, and if I'm going to have any hope of KOing things, I need fast move pressure with this team. My opponent fires off the Drill Run, that's going to be good by Qwilfish. I'm going to send in the Victory Bell. Victory Bell gets a Razor Leaf through, and now I will be KO'd with the Icy Wind, but that's some important damage, as now maybe I can farm down with Tentacruel. Tentacruel gets the farm down, and things are suddenly looking like this may actually be a win. I'm going to farm past the Scald, go for the Acid Spray. I'm hoping my opponent shields the first here, and they do. That's huge. Even though I have the charge move of Scald, it's the Acid Spray Only Challenge. I can only use Acid Spray. I Acid Spray again. Their defense is now 4 stages debuffed, and single resisted poison jabs have never looked so powerful. Tentacruel farms down the Mawile and secures the win. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Shadow Victory Bell into Lantern. My opponent is going to save switch into Mawile, and I respond with Tentacruel. Realistically, I could have sent in either water type, but I wanted to send in Tentacruel just because with the poison jab damage, I'll be able to inflict some extra damage on the Lantern after I inevitably take care of the Mawile. Mawile is going to fire off the Play Rough. Tentacruel able to tank that, no problem, and again go straight for the Acid Spray here. Acid Spray not enough to KO, but will get the Mawile into farm down range. I get a nice farm down of the Mawile. My opponent is going to wait their timer and then send back in the Lantern. Lantern will be hit with the Acid Spray. They know there's a grass type awaiting it, so they are not shielding anything here. They're going to let that through. Lantern will get quite a farm down, and now I send in the Victory Bell. In the back is Shadow Abomasnow, and I have made a fatal mistake. I should have sent the Qwilfish into the Mawile, but now they baited out my Tentacruel, and this Abomasnow is looking to sweep. I can only use Acid Spray, so that's what I'm going to do. Fire off the Acid Spray, get a shield, and now that their defense is lowered, these water guns are actually tearing through the Abomasnow. Abomasnow in a bit of a tough spot here. They need to KO this Qwilfish and leave with enough energy to make it to a Weather Ball versus the Victory Bell. I go for another Acid Spray. They fire off a charge move. At this point, they have to hope that a Weather Ball KOs. Weather Ball cannot KO. Lantern, anticipating the snipe, fired off the Thunderbolt. I did not switch. Victory Bell will get the full farm down as the Acid Spray Only squad wins again. Moving into the next match, picking up a slightly negative lead, Shadow Victory Bell into Tentacruel. I'm going to farm up some energy here and then look to potentially catch an Acid Spray onto my Qwilfish, but my opponent is going to bank a ton of energy and then send in Ferrothorn, and I just have nothing for Ferrothorn with this team. Ferrothorn proving to be extremely problematic. I'm able to land one Acid Spray here. My opponent will go for the Power Whip, and this is going to be getting the Qwilfish extremely low. Qwilfish barely able to hang on and make it to another Acid Spray. So their defense is now going to be 4 stages debuffed. This is the maximum amount of of debuffs that I can apply. I'm going to send back in the Victory Bell. They have a lot of energy here. I will respect the potential Flash Cannon. Unfortunately, I do get baited with a Power Whip. My opponent goes for another move. I'm just going to let this one through. Ferrothorn goes for the Power Whip. That's not going to be enough to KO. I do get the farm down, and I'm spamming the Acid Spray. It's a Bomb of Snow in the back. Maybe this is actually winnable. I fire off the Acid Spray, get the shield. In comes the Tentacruel. My opponent sends in their own Tenta, but they banked so much energy earlier. They fire off the Scald. That does get the attack debuff, and that is absolutely awful. I need to try and farm through this Tenta. Acid Spray is, of course, going to get that 2-stage defense debuff, but my attack has been 1-stage debuffed as well. My opponent is running Sludge Wave. That connects, and that deals so much damage. I get the farm down. Back in comes a Bomb of Snow, and this is going to be tough. I fire off the Acid Spray. That gets the shield up. Bomb of Snow looking for the farm down. Tentacruel makes it to another Acid Spray. Is this going to be enough to KO? My opponent has so much energy. I'm going to switch into Victory Bell. I do get the Razor Leaf through. This is big. I'm going to commit the shield, force the Abomasnow to throw their energy, and the question is, does one Poison Jab KO before one Powder Snow? And it's a tie. We see same leads again in the next match. Shadow Victory Bell into Tentacruel. So I'm going to play it the same way. I'm going to farm up and try and catch an Acid Spray onto my Qwilfish so I can preserve Victory Bell for later in the match. I farm up, switch, and this time I am successful in the catch. My opponent is going to fire off the Acid Spray. Tentacruel staying in this matchup, by the way. Tenta going for another Acid Spray. I am not going to shield. So far, we have a battle of Acid Spray. They double Acid Spray and now send in Trevenant. Trevenant, another Pokemon that is extremely difficult for this team to face. Acid Spray does get the shield. My defense torn to shreds, so I will get fast move down. They're now debuffed though, which means I'm going to send in my own Tentacruel here. And these Poison Jabs are adding up a lot. I will respect the potential Shadow Ball. Opponent baits with a Seed Bomb. Seed Bombs just feel so bad to shield. I am going to double shield here and just look for the farm down. This time it is the Shadow Ball, and that means I will get the full farm down, and I leave with so much energy. We'll have to see. Does my opponent send back in the Tentacruel? Yes, they do. So it looks like they are weak to my Tentacruel in the back. Acid Spray lands. I'm just going to fully commit to the farm down. In comes a Shiftry, and this is going to be interesting. Leaf Blade from Shiftry will absolutely crush the Tentacruel. I throw one, switch into the Victory Bell. I fail the catch, but this forces them to go for the Foul Play. Foul Play is going to KO. Back in comes my Tenta. I farm down, they send in theirs, and this is going to be close. I fire off the Acid Spray. I have to farm down to win. My opponent did not have a lot of energy. Can they make the Scald? They cannot. I make another Acid Spray. Acid Spray KOs the opponent as we somehow get the win. Picking up a bit of a tough lead in the next match, Shadow Victory Bell into Pelipper. Neutral Razor Leaves do a lot of damage here, but so will the super effective wing attacks. I'm going to farm up. My opponent is going straight for the Weather Ball. This is resisted, but it would still do a lot of damage. My opponent now is going to send in Galarian Wheezing, and I'm going to respond with Tentacruel. Now, Tentacruel can typically win the Zero Shields here, just going straight Scald, but unfortunately, the name of the game is only Acid Spray, so I am not actually able to go for Scald here. They go for another Brutal Swing. I'm going to bait like I can throw a Scald, hoping to try and get my opponent's shield. And they actually do commit the shield. That is quite nice for me. I go for another Acid Spray. This time I do lose CMP to my opponent. And I say, you know what? I'm actually going to let this go. I'm now going to send in Qwilfish. Water Guns absolutely shred when an opponent's defense has been lowered. And now my opponent will send in Pelipper. Pelipper will be hit with an Acid Spray here from the Qwilfish. Are they willing to shield? They are not. Opponent able to get sniped with the Victory Bell, but in the back is Ferrothorn, and this is really, really tough. As Ferrothorn, Victory Bell can handle in the 2 shield, but I only have 1 shield remaining, so this is going to be very, very difficult. I am very close to Power Whip range. I decide to call the bait here. My opponent full sends the Flash Cannon, and now it's all up to Qwilfish. Can Qwilfish Water Gun down a Grass type? I'm firing off another Acid Spray here. My opponent's defense is now 4 stages debuffed. Qwilfish can't quite get the farm down. The question is, do they have the back-to-back? We shield the Power Whip, and they have the second. Opponent with a sliver of HP KOs the Qwilfish. And we lose a heartbreaking game. Picking up a terrible lead in the next match, Shadow Victory Bell into Tropius. I'm going to save switch into the Quillfish, which is still not a good matchup, but I'm hoping that the threat of an Ice Beam is enough to force the opponent to switch out. They're going to fire off the Leaf Blade. Leaf Blade does so much damage, and now my opponent sends in Tentacruel. At the very least, they switched out. That is quite good for me. I fire off the Acid Spray, and I'm going to try and make it to Acid Spray number 2 here. Come on, Quillfish. Quillfish dies with the move. That is unfortunate. I just have to hope now that they're not running Sludge Wave. I bring in the Victory Bell. Looks like they are not running Sludge Wave. That's quite good. Looking for the farm down. They make it to one final charge move here. I'm going to let this through. Opponent made it to the Scald. That KOs, and now I need Tentacruel to 1v3 here. I'm able to KO the 1 HP Tentacruel in the back. My opponent has Mawile. This might actually be doable. I farm up to the Scald, and I'm firing off the Acid Spray here. I'm hoping that my opponent is going to shield the earlier Acid Sprays, as that will of course make my future Acid Sprays do more. So I fire off the Acid Spray. Opponent calls the bait. Okay, very interesting. I'm farming up, again, go into the Scald, but baiting with the Acid Spray. I want to try and grab shields from my opponent. My opponent refusing to shield the Mawile, and now sends in the Tropius. But by doing so, they gave me some farm on this Tentacruel. I make an early Acid Spray, and I believe I should be able to farm down before they make it to 2 moves with the Tropius. And that's very good news for me. They go for the Leaf Blade, Tentacruel gets the farm down, and now I can Acid Spray the Mawile as it gets brought back in. This Acid Spray is finally going to grab a shield from my opponent. They're going to be returning fire here with the power-up punch, and this is going to be a race. Fire Fang versus Poison Jab. Tentacruel with 1 HP secures the win. Moving into the next match, picking up a great lead, Shadow Victory Bell into yet another Lantern. Opponent save switches into Galarian Weezing, and I will immediately answer with Tentacruel. Building up to the Scald, baiting with the Acid Spray, the only charge move I'm allowed to throw, because again, if they end up shielding, I can win the 1 shield, but if they let this through, which they do, unfortunately, I do have to go down a shield to keep switch advantage. My opponent is firing off another Brutal Swing here. I'm going to let this go. I will have to shield the next, but then I will be able to get the farm down. So my opponent is firing off another Brutal Swing here. I will commit the shield, fully farm down, and leave with energy to get some chip damage onto the Lantern. My opponent is going to fully wait their timer here. In comes the Lantern, and it will be met with the Acid Spray. My opponent, of course, is going to let this through. They're looking for the farm down. Tentacruel makes it to 1 final Acid Spray. So now my opponent is going to be 4 stages debuffed. They're, of course, going to look to immediately switch, as in comes the Victory Bell in the back. Oh no, they have Sunny Cherim. The good news is, Cherim is pretty glassy, so the water guns are going to add up, and especially after I'm able to debuff them with an Acid Spray. They have to land the Solar Beam to KO. Do they bait? I commit the shield. It's a Weather Ball bait. That is absolutely terrible, but I make it to another Acid Spray. They have to burn the final shield. Their defense is now 4 stages debuffed. Water guns tearing through the Cherim. Cherim cannot hold a Solar Beam and a Weather Ball here. So Solar Beam will KO, but Victory Bell gets the Razor Leaf farm down, and Lantern just cannot make enough charge moves to KO here. Lantern is going to fire off the Surf. They have 1 more Surf loaded as well, but that is not going to be enough to KO. Shadow Victory Bell, standing strong, secures the knockout. Hopping into the final match, seeing the best possible lead, Shadow Victory Bell into Whiscash. Opponent save switches into a Powder Snow Alolan Ninetales, a Pokemon that I have not seen much of in this cup for this exact reason. Tentacruel just absolutely crushes it. They do land the Psyshock, and here, I'll be honest, I was battling late at night. I miscounted. I thought they had enough for the Psyshock, but they were short, so unfortunately I commit a shield when I didn't have to. My opponent is going to send back in the Whiscash here. It would be really nice to fire off a Scald, but the bad news is that I cannot do that. I'm going to overfarm here, threatening that I am going to be firing off the Scald. Opponent actually shields the Whiscash. I make it to another move, and this could be the Scald opponent. You have to shield this. Opponent does not shield it, but it ends up being a CMP tie. So that works out pretty nicely for me. 1 Razor Leaf would easily KO. They switch out in the back. They have a Tentacruel. And this is not necessarily a great spot for me. But the good news is, Water Gun is surprisingly oppressive. Acid Spray lands onto the Tentacruel, and these water guns are beginning to shred. My opponent will fire off the Scald. Scald does not get the attack drop. That is quite nice. My opponent firing off another charge move here. I am not going to expend the final shield. It's the Acid Spray. I'm able to hang on and make another Acid Spray of my own. Decision time for the opponent. They are not going to use their shield. They get the farm down, but they just don't have enough HP as Shadow Victory Bell is reigning supreme. We tank the Mud Bomb, farm down the Whiscash and the Tentacruel, and that is a good game. All in all, I had a ton of fun with the Acid Spray only challenge. It's a challenge that really makes you think about Go Battle League in a different way, as you're not able to rely on charge move damage in any meaningful kind of way. I will say, this is probably the most difficult meta that I've attempted the challenge in, as being triple weak to Ferrothorn is basically a death sentence in the Spring Cup meta. So I would definitely not recommend others try it out, as it is very tough to win being triple weak to Ferrothorn, but the wins that we were able to get were absolutely glorious. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.